What's going on, you guys? You're tuned into the Cutting Room Knife Review. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we are reviewing a really special knife. See, this model of knife has been out for quite some time, but this blade shape in this model has not. And I have been waiting for this blade to release in this model for quite some time. See, this is the AD20.5 Slicer Shark from Demco Knives. What's up, guys? I'm Garrett. You're tuned in to the Cutting Room Knife Review, where I review knives, blades, and all things sharp. Please like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more killer knife content. If you don't know Demco Knives, they're one of, in my opinion, the big three boutique production knife manufacturers that are US made. We have, of course, Chris Reeve Knives. We have Rick Hinderer Knives, which I just did a big episode about last week. And we have Demco Knives, and they were created by Andrew Demco. Now, Andrew Demco got his start with cold steel knives, and that's where he became famous. He released the AD10, and AD stands for Andrew Demco, the AD15. And then when he broke away from cold steel knives, he created Demco Knives, and they created the AD20. Now, the AD20 is American-made, all U.S.-made, full-size folding knife. Now, as you can see, it's much larger than the AD20.5. So, what the AD20.5 is a import model of the AD20, and it's a sized down model. So this knife is made in Taiwan, but it is one of the nicest imports you can probably get on the market. And just because it's Taiwan, don't let that fool you. Well, actually, Taiwan makes some incredible knives, so like it being from Taiwan shouldn't even shake you at all, because not only does Spyderco have great Taiwanese knives, Quiet Carry is amazing Taiwanese knives, and of course there's the Taiwanese Demco models, but it is a great representation of Demco knives and the quality they have. And really, it's not so much a step down as it is kind of a step to the side. More of a difference in size and limited materials that they use than a step down in quality, especially when you're getting like their titanium scales. So first off, let's take a look at the AD20.5 Slicer Sharks materials and dimensions and break all that down for you. All right, guys, so this is the Demco AD20.5 Slicer Shark. Now, the Slicer Shark is referring to, of course, the blade. They have, or they being Demco Knives, has a variety of, they're unique blades because it's Demco puts his twist on traditional blades. They have a shark's foot blade, which is, of course, a sheep's foot. They have this slicer blade, which is a bit of a spear point. They have a drop point blade. They have a clip point blade. They have a recurve, which is a copus blade. And then they have variations on that, which is like this one, the whale shark, which has basically a modified slicer blade. Now, this blade is kind of the best of all worlds, in my opinion. It embodies qualities of just both the shark's foot blade and then their drop point blade, and it just turns out to slice amazingly, and it also has great piercing abilities to it. It's just an all-around great knife blade that you don't see actually from too many companies. It's kind of this in-between blade that's just great. Like I said before, it's the best of both worlds. Now, getting into let's get the specifications and dimensions of this knife out of the way so we can talk more about this knife. So let's say the overall length of this knife is 7.5 inches. It has a blade length of 3.1 inches with a 2.9 inch cutting edge. That is an amazing amount of edge for this blade. I love it. I love blades that use up a good portion of the blade as cutting edge. It just makes for a really good cutting experience with the knife. And it turns into a more well-rounded knife, in my opinion. Now, the handle length of this knife is 4.5 inches. Okay. The blade width, which is this, which I always mistake for height. But anyway, the blade width is 1 inch even. Now, the widest point of the handle is 1.3 inches, but most of the handle is actually well within 1 inch. It's a very even knife. It's a very, very nice, even knife. Now, the thickness of the blade is 0.13 inches, and the thickness of the handle is 0.39 inches. That is a really thin handle. This is actually thinner than the Hinderer skinny Eclipse that I have. And it's a really comfortable knife because of that. It's really sleek. It fits really well in the hand. And one of the reasons that it's able to stay so thin is this shark lock. Now, Demco has a patented locking mechanism. We've talked about this locking mechanism already when I did my review of the Flightanium Arcade Lite. Flightanium Arcade Lite uses this locking system. They license it from Demco. What this is it's a lot like the Super Lock from SNEX 10, which I've also spoken about in my reviews of the Vision FG, my shorts on the Vision R, and then my review of the Civivi Buster FG. They all use the Super Lock. Well, SNEX 10 and Andrew Demco are friends, I believe, and they have very similar locking mechanisms as each other. Now, they work a little bit differently. Where the spring is in the lock is in a different place in each knife, but essentially it's doing the same thing. And so what you have is you have a bar that lives inside the scales, right? It's almost like a backspacer, except it's up on the knife towards the blade. And you have this piece of titanium that has a spring inside of it. And you can push this piece back and then it's pushed forward by the spring when you let go. But when you push it back, it lets go of the blade. As you can see, there is a groove right here in the blade that this bar can press into. And there's a large piece of this blade that sticks out and will stick under said bar. When the bar slides forward, it lands over the piece of the blade that is now under it. And now this blade is not going anywhere. The shark lock is one of the strongest locking mechanisms on the planet, basically. It's one of the strongest knife locking mechanisms. Andrew Demco is an absolute engineering genius when it comes to knives. He's invented many locking systems. The triad lock is very famous from his AD10 model, and you'll find it on all kinds of cold steel knives. It's a lot like a back lock, just better. It's like a back lock, mid back lock on steroids. He created the Scorpion lock, which is on the AD15. I don't have one of those to show you. I actually don't have an AD10 to show you either. But the Scorpion lock's almost like it's not like a Bali song lock. It's hard to explain. The whole piece of the scale, whole piece of the handle opens up and the blade slides in, and then that piece of the handle comes back over the blade. And essentially it's locking the blade in just like this, like the shark lock does. But the shark lock just does a better job of being compact and not having half your knife open up to move the blade. And now this is very fidgety. You can just pull this back and the blade swings freely. In fact, when you watch advertisements from Demco knives, they don't actually, most of the time they're not flipping their knives. They either like open them like this, or they like flip them out with the shark lock. And I've never been a person to like depress a button lock or a button compression lock or a shark lock for that matter and just swing my knife around. I don't like swinging knives around because I watch too many people swing their knife and just throw their knife because they're holding the knife loosely. And I have kids at my house, and I am working right now on knife safety with my sons. And it's just one of the things we don't do. We don't flick knives with our wrists. If we're going to do a spidey flick or whatever, we're using our fingers and we're gripping the knife tightly. Now it has a really strong, it's a spring detent. So technically it's not a detent ball. So I don't know if people would argue that it's not even a detent at all, because a detent is a ceramic ball that slows down the knife as far as opening and closing, whereas this is just a spring back here that is, if you look, it pushes back this shark lock and then locks into place. And it's a lot of a feeling like a very, very firm crossbar lock. It has that springy feeling to it where it's like a spring detent. But as you can see, if you flick it wrong, the spring is so strong that sometimes you will misfire the blade. But if you get a good flick on it, it's actually a really snappy and it's a great feeling of a knife. It has a very pleasurable, very satisfying finger flick to it. This knife in particular only has a slot for deployment, whereas some Demco knives also have a thumb stud and a slot, and then some only have a thumb stud. Now, I have two knives that have a slot and a thumb stud, and then I have three knives of those that have a slot and a thumb stud. Then I have two Demco knives that just have a slot. Now, it seems like more of his slicer knives he does with just a slot. However, my whale shark does have a thumb stud built in to the slot. It's all just feel, really. Not one is better than the other. Whatever you like more. I find that the knives feel a little bit sleeker and lighter without the thumb stud. I also find that they're easier to flick with the thumb stud, as it just gives you more something of substance right here to catch your finger on when you do flick it, and just something to press up against. So moving on, this is an all titanium knife. It has a plain edge on it and a flat grind. It's a very slicey knife. As I said, it's a pretty thin knife. It's 0.13, so it's not the thinnest up here, but it gets really thin on the grind. It has a nice light stone wash on the blade. The blade is CPM 3V. Now, CPM 3V is an amazing knife steel. It is an older knife steel. And it's one that Demco Knives and Andrew Demco has been using for a long time. Guys, we're talking way pre-Magna Cut, pre-Super Steels, really, pre-CPM S30V, pre-S35VN, pre-S45VN. I'm going the wrong order. All those aged towards me. But 30V was the first out of those Super Steels. And those were developed by Chris Reeve knives. But before all that, people were using either 154 CM or CPM, or Crucible's version CPM 154, or a lot of knives were using D2 or 3V. And what 3V is like, it's a tool steel. It's not a stainless steel, but it has very corrosion resistant properties to it. I've never had a 3V steel corrode on me. And I live in San Diego County. I live about 5 blocks from the beach. I do not, now San Diego is not the most humid environment. We live in what's called a Mediterranean climate, but I'm living really close to the beach. Like, if my barbecues outside, I have to change every couple of years because they just rust out on me. The sea air is corrosive, and none of my 3V knives have corroded at all. It has a nice polished stonewash finish to it. It is incredibly tough. 3V is a tool steel that is just tough as nails. If I was going to pick a knife steel that I was going to just whack into stuff, I was going to chop stuff with, that I was just going to be brutally tough on at the job site, 3V is that steel. It is just crazy, crazy tough. Does it take the best edge? It's not. It's not Maximet. You know, it's not. It doesn't take the like. It takes a great edge. It's not the highest in edge retention. It's not the highest in as far as like getting a great sharp edge goes to. It gets a great sharp edge, but it's not the highest on that list. What it is, one of the highest on is absolute toughness. This is one of the most durable steels you will ever find. This is a working man's steel. So this knife has the slicer blade on it in CPM 3V. And one of my favorite parts, one of the parts I think is the coolest about this blade is this little dip right here, this jimped dip. It is the most comfortable spot to put your thumb. I swear, this little dip in the top of the knife spine with the strong jimping in it just holds my hand right there. It is not going anywhere off my thumb. It is so comfortable, you guys. Now, the way this knife works is we have this kind of like half choil right here and then a full finger groove choil right here. So we can hold this knife both all the way back or choked up, and I'm not on the blade. It's very comfortable. We have a nice little dip under my pinky finger, and I have size large, extra large hands, you guys. This knife fits in my hands. Now, it's 7.5 inches long, which is basically the perfect everyday carry size. Like I say in every video, say it with me, guys, between 7 and 8 inches overall, between 3 and 3.5 inches blade length. And with 7.5 inches overall, 3.1 inches on the blade, and basically 4.4 inches, 4.5 inches on the handle, it is one of the most comfortably sized knives I own. Andrew Demco just knocked this knife out of the park when it comes to like the perfect size for everyday carry, at least for me. This is exactly what I want. The blade feels the appropriate size. It doesn't feel too small, yet it doesn't feel so big that the knife's kind of unwieldy. It fits really well in my pocket. It's incredibly thin this way. It's fairly light. This knife weighs 4.2 ounces, which is not, I'm sorry, it's not incredibly light, but it honestly feels light in my hands right now. And it's substantial enough that it feels rock solid, but it is light enough that it doesn't bother me to carry at all. It doesn't feel like a chunky, clunky knife. It doesn't have any kind of thickness that it requires to have say a frame lock on the titanium or a bolster lock on the titanium or to have a liner on the inside pushing this out at all. It's very, very thin. It has pretty much everything it needs. It has a titanium clip, pocket clip, and it actually comes with a separate clip for left-handed users. So while you can't flip this clip around, they give you one to install if you're a lefty. And this is an ambidextrous locking mechanism. So this is as perfectly set up left-handed knife as it is right-handed. It is perfectly ambidextrous, 100% ambidextrous. There is no difference to the right, to the left on the side. So lefties rejoice. This is a knife for you. It has a really comfortable finger slot as far as deployment goes. I find it a little bit harder to use my middle finger. Just for some reason, I get misflicks on it. Now, once again, guys, I learned originally to flick with my front finger and till all you guys bullied me about it. And so now I've learned to flick with my middle finger, mainly because I got tired of hearing about how I flicked with my index finger and how much better flicking with your middle finger was. For some reason, I have a little bit of trouble with this knife in particular, my middle finger now. I've practiced with it and I've gotten better, but there was a little bit of a learning curve. We have smooth titanium scales. This knife also comes in milled titanium scales. There's only one milling that Demco offers as far as their AD20.5 scales go, and I'm kind of a smooth scales fan as far as Demco goes. I think they look clean. It reminds me a lot of, like a plain Jane Chris Reeve knife. And to tell you the truth, the price point on this knife is $330. It's $375 if you want the milled scales, but $330 for a high-end titanium, high-end blade steel, high-end production knife is rock bottom low. It really is. And granted, it's a Taiwanese knife. The 20.5s, the smaller knives that are made from Demco, come from their Taiwan factory, but their Taiwan factory makes amazing knives, just like Spyderco's Taiwan factory makes amazing knives, just like Quiet Carry's Taiwan factory makes amazing knives. They just tend to make really good knives. I put them right on par with the American knives, with the exception that the blade steels are more limited in quantities and or lesser than blade steels than the American made Demcos, and the size of the knives is smaller, and some of them use less expensive scale options. Now, this is the biggest of the Demco Taiwan line. The rest of the Taiwan line is more and more compact. They also have a Shark Cub, which is a bit smaller than this knife. Not a ton smaller, but a little bit smaller. And originally, it was the only knife that you were able to get the slicer blade in. And I almost bought it. I'm really glad that I waited for this knife because it's more appropriately sized for what I want. And then they also have the Shark Nano, which is a really cool, ultra compact Demco knife. All these knives come in either from titanium to aluminum to carbon fiber to G10 and Grivery. Now, the Demco Taiwan knives offer steels in CPM 3V and CPM 20 CV are the top of the line steels. They use a step down from that they use is CPM S35 VN. Step down from that is D2, and then a step down from that is AUS 10 as their budget steel. And they're all actually really good choices of steels. Now, the Shark model is basically a heavy duty knife. The AD20.5 Slicer Shark model is incredibly heavy duty. There's nothing about this knife that is easily damaged, easily breakable. It's all put together really, really well. I have basically no complaints about the materials used on this knife. If you want, you can get a deep carry clip from Lynch Northwest, and it basically looks the same as, it looks just like this. This is the deep carry clip from Lynch Northwest. And so instead of coming out right here, just kind of like the same between the Lynch deep carry clip from Spyderco, whether you want the spoon style clip. This is actually very similar to a Spyderco clip. If you're used to Spyderco's regular clips, you're going to be used to the Demco clips. And if you're used to Lynch Northwest deep carry clips by Spyderco, you'll be used to the Lynch Northwest deep carry clips for Demco. I think I said that right. So let's get in and compare the AD20.5 Slicer Shark to some other knives. All right, guys. So comparing the AD20.5 Slicer Shark to other knives, we are going to, like always, so I don't go to knife jail, I will follow mandatory YouTube knife law and compare the AD20.5 to the Spyderco Para 3 first. And what we have is a knife that's slightly larger than the Para 3. It's just a little bit larger. If you look at their handles, the handles are very much the same size. If you're comfortable with the Para 3, for some reason I feel like the Para 3 is a little bit smaller than the AD20.5, but really it's not. If you look at this, like just looking at it, it's not. I find that I can hold back on the AD20.5 easier. I don't feel like I have to choke up, whereas on this Para 3, I don't really hold it back like this ever. No, I can. I pretty much always hold it like this. The AD20.5, I'm pretty comfortable holding it back like this. It feels a lot more natural to do this. I carry it like this. I hold it like this all the time, but this is a bit more natural, and that puts the blade much further out away from my hand, making the knife have a bigger feel to it. It feels like the blade is just larger. I'm able to cut further away from me, although I'm able to choke up on this knife just amazingly well. And we do have a little bit more blade length on this. We have 3.1 inches than the slightly under 3 inches that we have on the Para 3. I believe this is 2.9 something, 2.98 maybe, 2.9-ish, 2.9, right under 3, and this is just over 3. As you can see, there's just a little bit extra. But if you look at the actual blade geometry and the edge length of this knife does not come close to this knife. This is 2.9 on the edge. This is like 2.9 on the hole. So there's this much, sticking out that isn't. I think it's 2.7-ish for the Para 3. I'm going off the top of my head, so forgive me if I said that wrong. Now, we of course are going to next compare it to the Para 3's bigger brother, the Paramilitary 2, which is slightly bigger. Just slightly bigger. So with the AD20.5, we have this real happy medium right in between the Para 3 and the Paramilitary 2. And if you know anything about what I have to say about these knives, we have medium, and I've made up the dumbest sounding name for large medium, medium. But, going along with a schmedium, which I just love that word, schmedium, knife size, we have a completely mid-sized knife in this. This is what I consider a medium-sized knife. 7.5 is just the happy spot for me as far as carries go. If you tell me a knife is 7.5 inches, I'm going to say perfect. Tell me the blade's 3 inches. The blade's 3 inches and the knife's 7.5 inches. I'm just a happy camper. Now, anywhere around there, I'm happy with. I love the Para 3. I love this little guy. It's not that little of a guy, but I love this guy. I love the Paramilitary 2. This is a great knife too. I dig this knife. Me and everybody else, right? So, but like this thing just sits right in the middle of the two, right in the happy place. This is just my happy place for knives. It doesn't get better than this, you guys. It's a great size. So now let's compare it to another Taiwanese amazing pocket knife. And this is one of my favorite EDCs from a different Taiwanese company. This is the Quiet Carry Drift LCT. Now the Drift LCT is a little bit bigger than it. It has a 3.5-inch blade, and it has a little bit bigger of a handle as well. I forget the size of the handle, but it's just a tad bit bigger, but really it fits about the same in my hand. Yeah, I don't really choke up on this knife. That is a sharpening choil, not a choke up point. And I just get a little bit more blade out in front of me, but really when I hold this back, it's a little bit smaller of a blade, but it fits just great. These are both incredible choices for everyday carry. Now, this is in Van X and has basically been made just for aquatic use. If you're going to be wet between these two knives, do not get the 3V wet, you guys. It's not meant for that. Go with the Drift. It's totally meant for it. They're pretty close to the same price range. This is $375, so it's like it's milled brother. They cost the same amount, but they're in the same price range. They're both made in Taiwan. They're both great knives, right? Which is kind of cool because how much I like the high. This is basically the highest end of quiet carry. This is the highest end of the Taiwan versions of Demco, but the Taiwan versions of Demco are basically the budget brand of Demco. So, or I'll call it the import brand. $330 is not budget knife by any stretch of the term. I know I'm gonna get roasted in the comments for that one if I say that. So, guys, it's not a budget knife. It's not a budget brand. It's the import brand. But the import brand allows us to have less expensive knives. I will start out with one of those less expensive knives. This is the Demco AD20.5 Tonto blade in CPM 3V. Now, this blade has a G10 handle to it. Otherwise, it's fairly similar. This is a DLT Trading exclusive knife, and this knife actually comes in at $179.99. So basically $180. For $180, this is a steal. This is an absolute workhorse of a steel. It's a great Tonto blade. It's a flat ground CPM 3V blade. It has the same finish on it that this does. The light the polished stone wash. Has great jimping up here. It's a little bit more square. It has basically very hard angles on it, like a Tonto should, all over the place. But the handles are essentially the same. It might honestly be a bit thinner just because the G10 is so thin on it. I think it is. But it has a shark lock on it as well. If you really are looking for a high-end budget knife, more budget knife, this isn't our budget range either, but a very inexpensive Demco with high-end blade steel, that's going to be a great work knife, and you're just going to be able to beat the ever-living tar out of it. This Tonto is an amazing option. I didn't even know this blade exists. And as soon as I saw it, I bought it that day just because I said, oh my gosh, it's such a deal at $180 to be getting a CPM 3V blade, a shark lock, the quality of a Demco. And the only thing holding it back from costing more is just the G10 scales. And me being a Spyderco guy, G10 doesn't scare me. Like it ain't a problem, guys. Like it's not. I don't think it's the nicest scale material, but it ain't bad. It's really grippy. It's really nice. I'll do a review of this knife on its own. It deserves its own review. But this is another option that we have. This is an AD 20.5 that we can compare it to. Now I have one other AD 20.5 that I'd like to compare to the Slicer Shark, and that is the AD 20.5 Shark's Foot in titanium, that is plain titanium. So basically, these are the same model knives, right here and right here. Let's put this one away. They go for the same price. Basically, the exact same knives minus the blade shape and the blade material. Now, I believe you can get this one in 3V as far as the Shark's Foot goes. This is in 20CV, which is basically Crucible's version of Bowler M390. It's an older, but once again, great. It's the original Super Steel. It's basically the original Super Steel. And so if you want something that has a little bit like slicier edge to it, that's maybe not as durable as this, but has more edge retention and more like super steelish qualities to it, the CPM 20 CV is a really good choice. A lot of people these days think Bowler M390 CPM 20 CV is not a great steel. That's BS. It's complete BS. At the right heat treatment, which I guarantee you Demco does the right heat treatment, CPM 20 CV or Bowler M390 is a great steel. It shines when it's got a good hardness to it. When the HRC is correct, it's a great steel with a great edge, and there's absolutely zero wrong with it. So these are like the pinnacles of Demco knives. And you can pay one variation of this knife gets more expensive, and it's just because it has milled titanium scales. I like the plain scales. It's actually what I prefer. I had the option, I had the money to buy a milled scale. With this knife, I chose not to. I like these scales better. The only time I'm going to have a milled scale is I have some special original goat scales on order for my full-size AD20S coppice blade, but that's neither here nor there because those aren't Demco scales. So the differences between these two knives is basically going to be the blade geometry. This has a sheep's foot blade geometry, which is very straight. It just has very little belly to it. It's an amazing slicer. This one has curve to it at the end and a point. It's a good mix between this and this knife and like their clip point or their drop point knives. The slicer is slicey, as the name suggests, but it also has enough belly on it, enough point to it to make it really well rounded. This is a nice point on this sheep's foot. It is not the most square in the front, which is good, but you don't get this little curve of a belly where you can kind of lean into the cut more and have a narrower piece of the blade be flat, like kind of at an angle. Whereas this, you're just going to kind of keep getting less and less as you angle, going more into a point that you're cutting with. I feel like there's just a little bit more flexibility with the slicer blade. Just my opinion. Now, there's nothing wrong with the shark's foot. I've had the shark's foot for ages, and it was my preferred blade for the AD20.5 before the slicer came out. I like both of these better than I like the clip point. That's just me. This knife blade, however, is 2.8 inches long, so you get an extra 0.3 inches of blade, which it doesn't appear to look like that, but they claim this is a 2.8 inch blade, and this is a 3.1 inch blade. I'm not sure if this is 0.3 inches. You be the judge. It is slightly shorter. It's a great knife, though. Works, functions, is essentially the exact same thing. Then the difference between this knife and its US Demco counterparts is going to be the size and the blade materials. So first I'm going to show you a full-size AD20S. This is in the coppice blade. It is also in 20 CV. But as you can see, the handle of the American-made Demcos is much larger. The blade length is much longer. The blade edge is enormous on this knife. So this really fills my hand out more. Even choking it up, I still have a giant amount of blade out in front of me. It's great. The jimping is tougher. Basically, everything about this knife is bigger and bolder. They do share the same size pivot, which is very interesting. Both share a shark lock. As you can see, the shark lock on the 20.5 is slightly smaller. I don't know if it will really affect whether it will hold up any different on this knife than this knife. I would venture to say that it's not going to make a difference at all. Now, basically they're set up exactly the same. This is just set up bigger, chunkier, bigger blade. So in reality, if you're happy with 3V or 20 CV as a blade steel, and you want to save money or you just want a more compact knife, the 20.5 is a great choice. It's not really any better than this knife. They both run on bearings. They both are basically set up exactly the same. They really are. And yeah, it's essentially like the same knife, just a little bit smaller. Now, here comes the grail of Demco knives, at least for me. This is the AD20 compact whale shark. Now, they are very close to the same lengths. I think this is 7.7 inches. I think it has 0.2 inches on it. I think the handle might be a 0.1 bigger. The blade might be 0.1 bigger, or maybe blade's a little bit bigger. If you look at the angle of, they're both slicer blades, basically. This is kind of a clip point in a strange way. You could call this, you might call this like a big belly clip point. You might call this a weird variation on a modified sheep's foot. I think it's a slicer blade. This is the whale shark. And it has a bit different of a handle shape to it. And it is thick, guys. This is 0.18 inches thick on the blade thickness. So it is, 0.05 inches thicker on the blade thickness, which on knife blades is huge. This is much heavier, much chunkier. You look at how thick the this big piece of titanium right here for the locking mechanism, and it is just beefy, guys. You can just feel it. It also has a MagnaCut blade, and that's one of the things that you're going to be getting with American-made Demcos is you're going to have the option of S90V, crew wear, MagnaCut. So this is a MagnaCut blade. It's an awesome knife, but as you can see, the American-made Demcos are just bigger and beefier than the Taiwan Demcos. That being said, I know a lot of people that prefer the AD20.5 to the AD20s because they just don't want that big of a knife. They think this is a more comfortable everyday carry, and I don't blame them. I have really big hands. I like big knives. I am an AD20 fan over the AD20.5. You will catch me buying more AD20s than AD20.5s from here on out. This is basically the AD20.5 that I wanted. This is the compact Demco that I want. I have the knife that I want from here on out. If I'm buying Demco knives, it's probably going to be American-made knife because there's nothing that tops this as far as a compact Demco goes for me. It's the perfect compact carry for me as far as Demco goes. I don't need a nano shark. I don't need a shark's cub. They're too small. I just don't need them that small. This is perfect. So what we have is a moderate size Demco knife that's made in Taiwan, but basically to the exact standards of the American knives with the same materials essentially as the American knives. You can get American-made Demcos with CPM 3V. You can get American-made Demcos with CPM 20 CV. So these knives are not, they're using the same materials as some of the American knives. They have the exact same feel and basically just a smaller, thinner package. And I brought this knife to work with me this last week, and it does work. It is just a beast on the job site. It is durable. It is tough. It slices like the name suggests. It's a really comfortable knife to have on you all day. It's a knife that I trust. It's a knife that I've grown to love very quickly. I can't recommend this enough. I thought these knives were going to sell out right when they opened up. I didn't think they were going to produce as many as they did, but they are available on the Demco website. They are available on BladeHQ.com. I think they're probably available on other knife retailers that retail Demco knives. So it looks like they are going to keep this model as far as a release goes. They're going to just start continuing to have the slicer blade available for the AD20.5. So if this is a knife that you are going to go get, I highly recommend the AD20.5 Slicer Shark. Now, if you're just getting into Demco knives or you have a limited budget, definitely go with the 20.5, you guys. You're not really missing out on a ton with the AD20S, AD20, or AD20 Compact. If you don't have the money, there's no real reason to jump up unless you want just a bigger freaking knife. If that's the case, more power to you. If you got the money, go for it. I love them. It's what I prefer, but there's nothing wrong with this knife. And I carry this knife a whole lot. This has gone into my regular rotation instantly. It is a ton of fun to fidget with. It is reliable. It is durable. It is great looking. The aesthetics are just top notch on this knife. So ergonomic, aesthetic, durable, fairly affordable. $330 ain't that much. I've reviewed a lot more expensive knives than that. I own a lot more expensive knives than this. So there's no reason that if you like this knife that you wouldn't go get it. And there's a couple different, not lots of, there's 3 different options that you can get with the AD20.5. If you're into shark's foot or sheep's foot, if you're into sheep's foot, you can get the shark's foot. You know, if you're into clip points, you have the option of a clip point too. In my opinion, what's the most all around of them? It's the Slicer Shark. You really just can't go wrong with this, and I highly recommend it. So this, guys, is the Demco AD20.5 Slicer Shark, just released. Go get you one. I'm Garrett from the Cutting Room Knife Review. Till next time, guys, stay sharp.